I'd like to call this Manchester Community Schools regular monthly morning meeting to order. If you'd all please rise for and remove your hats for Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. All the board's present. Dr. Renaud, Mr. Markham, Mr. France. Emergency additions and deletions. 7.4, the handbooks, 7.5, 7.6, 7.7 are all been deleted for tonight. Those will be on May 25th at the work session for a first reading. And there's a change, 671, regarding the RIFs. MES kindergarten has been deleted and MES first grade has been added. Any other additions or deletions? I'd to entertain a motion to accept to the agenda as modified.
So moved.
Mr. Raymer?
Second.
Mr. Boyd, second. All in favor? Opposed? That was unanimous. Okay. This time, hearing of patrons on agenda items. Okay. Dr. Renaud. Presentation.
Presentation is the Icarian plunge. Jack, I'm sure, is here, Shoemaker, and please go ahead and take the podium. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Renaud, members of the board. My name is Rhonda Snover, and I am a teacher at Manchester High School. I teach English, and I am happy to be here to share with you the Icarian plunge. A little bit about the Icarian plunge. It's really not my concept. It was something that was here when I started my tenure at Manchester some 30 plus years ago. Somewhere along the line, though, we stopped publishing it, and last year in particular, I knew, because I saw what the students were doing as far as writing those and artwork, it was definitely time to give these kids a voice and a place again. And so at the beginning of this year, I asked Mrs. Burnworth if she'd be willing to join me in this venture in bringing back the Icarian plunge. And I think from the very get-go, she was game on, right? Yes. And so what ended up happening is that we just kind of took it all on, and this is completely student material, student published. Everything you see to the very last little staple was put in there by our hands. And of course, what we are hoping is that the community, that our own student body will see the work that's in here. And as it says with the Icarian plunge, these students were willing to take a risk and to share their hearts and their souls on these pages and in their artwork. And so this evening, I have with me Mrs. Burnworth, and I have our co-editors. I have Jack Shoemaker, and I have Frank Roth, sorry, like whoop. And they are going to do the presentation on exactly what it took to put together this plunge, because I can tell you this, my enthusiasm for this project well exceeded my skill set, and so we had a lot of learning to do, and a couple of times scratching our heads and figuring it all out, but at the end of it all, you can see from the publication that you have, which was the one we put out in the fall, and we have a new one that is being sold starting tomorrow, which is volume 16. So with that, I'll turn the mic over to Jack and Frank. Thank you.
Good evening. When I first heard about the Icarian plunge, I wasn't really certain what it is. I personally really enjoy writing, so when I found out it was a writing publication in art, I immediately hopped onto it. In this current year, I've learned a lot about the whole design process in writing. me and Jack personally had to take a lot of responsibility onto our hands. We weren't really certain what we were doing at first. There was a lot we had to do, and we didn't have a lot of people to help us, except for Mrs. Snover and Mrs. Burnwood, who gave us a lot of assistance that we really needed. One thing that I really do like about that Carrying Plunge is it gives a voice to all the students in our school. There's a lot of great writers and a lot of great artists, and sometimes you just can't see their work. Sometimes they need that form to push themselves. They need that publication where they can finally show who they are. I know it can be hard for writers to put their work out there because it's almost like you're losing a piece of who you are. But the Carrying Plunge lets you take the plunge. It lets you take that risk. It lets you show off a piece of yourself. It helps you get yourself out there. And that's what I really like about it. And what I've learned from making the plunge this year is it is a lot harder than you think it is. Designing it was a challenge. I had to learn a lot of things, and I had to work around deadlines, and I had to spend a lot of extra hours that I was not planning on working on it. And after that, I had to work on putting it together. Me and Jack, we spent a lot of time, we've had a lot of meetings and discussions, trying to figure it out, and trying to make Volume 16, our newest issue, the best one we could possibly make. Because that's what I truly love about that Carrying Plunge. Showing off the amazing creators in our school through our publication. And I feel like it's really brought us together. I didn't know Mrs. Snover really well, and I feel like I know her better now. I know Mrs. Burnwood better now. I know Jack more. And I feel like I know the students at our school better now. I feel like I understand more students. And I hope that when it comes out, a lot more people will say that. And a lot more people will be more willing to submit their work. So, I just want to say congratulations to all the students who made it into the publication. And I hope we can continue to receive your support. So I'm going to go a little more into the process of making the plunge. So the first thing we had to do was have a selection meeting, which after we got all of our submissions, we had a good amount. We had to do a little bit of voting and put them all together. And after that, the hardest part was designing it. Because since we had to fold it all together, that made it a lot more difficult, so we had to constantly retweak the design. Over there on the left is the covers, which we had to cut down in full. We had to make sure it was all nice, because we want to, the thing with Carrying Plunge is we want the top quality. So we have a lot of different work from freshmen to seniors. We have both art and writing. And as Mrs. Snover said, we will be selling it tomorrow. On the left is some of the artwork from the newest publication, and on the right is covers that have just been done folded. In the box are completed Volume 16s. One thing about creating the plunge was it takes a lot of time. When Mrs. Burnworth made the plunge last semester, I had no idea what she went through. I truly learned a lot and understood the learning curve that she had to go through. I had to learn in position. I had to learn how to put this all together. Most importantly, I had to learn time management because I did not have time for all this. And I had to figure it all out really quickly, and I had to work around deadlines. But I think we put together a really great plunge, and I cannot wait for you all to see it.
I think Frank talked beautifully, and Jack also put a lot of time into the presentation as well. They were both fantastic and fantastic to work with. I echo everything they said, and I just want to summarize everything by looking at this quote here. It says, "Art civilizes us, and it connects us, and it activates us. And so it's really important to connect with compassion, with stories about people who are different from us." And I really believe that that's what happens in this plunge. It gives a format for students to connect with themselves, with each other, with our greater community. And as they go out into our local communities and into our national communities, even the global community. We want them to have an understanding of each other and an understanding of what it is to express yourself, to be a creative, to bring your best self out into the world. We hope that's what the plunge does, and we thank you guys for listening tonight. I encourage you to delve into this further and really look at this after this. And if anybody wants to see volume 16 here or beyond, it is sold at the high school in the office for $5 a copy, or you can get it from myself as well, so thank you.
Can I just say that I had the opportunity to read through it, and I was just really excited to learn more about the students. It was a really good piece of work, so great job.
Thank you.
A lot of work went into it, I know, so good job. Really appreciate that. Thank
I
you
have
for
a
sharing.
question. Was this a work-based learning project? I mean, how did you fund this? Did you,
Actually, no, it wasn't necessarily. It was just something that we took on. We did actually receive, what was it, $300 from the Wabash?
Grant from the Wabash Community.
Yeah, we wrote for a grant to get it started, but yeah, we had no money and just enthusiasm.
great job.
So does the $5 go back to the program then, for
Yeah.
the next disc?
It's our goal to eventually be able to create more in a smaller time frame by outsourcing parts of it. So hopefully the funds will go back into that and then eventually into other submissions and scholarships for the students as well. Please help them.
So, really cool stuff, kind of culture over conflict, the way I look at it. I love the way you were expressing how, just sharing a little bit of yourself goes a long way with most people. Sometimes some people can use that to hurt you, but I mean, that's really what life's about. You gotta tell me though, I'm kind of like an album cover junkie. You gotta give me some one secret about this cover. Did you guys do this?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
I have an extremely talented student. Her name is Liliana Colby. She will be the first in her family to go to college. She will be at Columbia College in Chicago, which is a premier art university that has internships with, you name it, they do it. She will be a name to look for in the future. She created that piece along with 6 others that got her a $10,000 scholarship at Scholastic Art and Writing program this year.
Really killer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Recognition, Dr. Ramon?
Yeah, we actually have several this evening that I want to take the time to recognize. First on our list is Tammy Allen, who has served MCS as an educator for 36 years. And she has taught both math at the junior high level as well as the 5th grade at MIS for the past several years. Tammy has been committed to giving her students the very best education possible during her tenure. She works tirelessly to ensure that all students are acquiring the skills needed, not only to pass the current grade, but to excel in years to come. Additionally, Mrs. Allen is a leader among the staff at MIS. She serves many leadership roles at both building and district level, and she is always willing to step up and volunteer her time to pitch in where needed. MIS has been very fortunate to have her as a teacher of her caliber for over 3 decades, and she lives the life that she does with great impact in a positive manner, and her dedication and to all students has been innumerable. Thank you for serving MCS so well. We wish Tammy the best of luck in her future endeavors. So thank you, Tammy. I know she's not here, but let's give her a round of applause. We also have another retirement. It's Jennifer Boone, and she has been with us for 2 decades at Manchester Community Schools. She has held a few different roles at MIS, including the computer lab teacher, as well as most recently the attendance and administrative secretary position. Mrs. Boone truly is the glue that keeps MIS together. She works diligently behind the scenes on a daily basis to keep the building running smoothly. She knows the students, their families, and the unique situations impacting our school community. Her expertise and leadership will be missed. Anyone that knows Mrs. Boone knows that the last thing she would want is any sort of public recognition, but she is well deserving of the praise and the accolades for the work she's put in during her career. Thank you, Mrs. Boone. You will be greatly missed. So, thank you. I also want to just take a moment to recognize Shelly Lifer. This is the first board meeting we have had since she has been named the Indiana Small and Rural Schools Teacher of the Year last week. This announcement was highly publicized. However, we just wanted to take a moment at the board meeting to recognize her for her excellent work and dedication to our students. We're so proud to have the Indiana State Teacher of the Year working at MCS. And Shelly will be representing Indiana in the National Rural Education Association competition this summer. We wish her a lot of luck. And there was one other group I really want to take the time to recognize this evening, and it is the Marketing Committee, and you'll learn more about what they did. But I just want to thank them for their time and dedication to developing an official branding guide that we're going to be releasing tonight. It took about a year for us to do this work and talk through the process and gather input and develop the guide that will be utilized to ensure fidelity in the logo and also the mascot. The team consisted of Shelly Lifer, Dave Zinsmeister, Stephanie Pinkerton, Bethany Hall, Randy South, and me. And a special thank you goes out to Dave Zinsmeister for using his time and talents to create the guide. So thank you to all of those members. A lot of time went into that. So please give them a round of applause. That's all I have for recognitions for now.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Grimmel. Consent items would be the minutes from the executive session that were in your packet, last month's regular board meeting, the regular claims dated May 11th, and the prepaid claims dated April 1 through 30, and payroll claims dated April 2nd, April 16th, and April 30th. We didn't have any grants. Mr. Raymer, would you read the donations, please?
We had a $7.20 donation from Casey's General Store. It was a loyalty donation. We had a donation of $1,904.20 to MES from the book drive. A donation of $4.40 to the MJSHS Student Activities Fund from Casey's General Stores. We had a donation of $40 to the MJSHS Track Program, cash from an anonymous donor. Donation of $300 to the MJSHS Boys Golf Program for golf balls from the Manchester Athletic Boosters Club. Donation of $2,200 to the MJSHS FFA Senior Scholarship Fund from an anonymous donor. Donation of $350 to the MES for kindergarten snacks from Wabash County Sheriff's Department. A donation of $250 to MES Field Day, Joni Kripe Animal Farm from MPS Egg Farm.
Yeah, thank you. We had no facility rentals. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent items. Mr. Hensley,
Second.
second by Mr. Raymer. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor, signify aye. Motion carries 7-0. Recommendations for approval. I'll let Dr. Grimmel go through these personnel.
Okay, 6.11, employment, Brooke Rumpel, special education, long-term substitute. Teresa Enderico for third grade long-term maternity substitute. Keith Miller at the high school for part-time table washer. That's Sarah Leiniger for the high school special needs teacher. Terry Pierce, Manchester Junior Senior High School chemistry and physics teacher. Justin Heater, junior high assistant track coach. Zachary Shinnefield, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, junior senior high school building IT support specialist. And Tricia Dolby, MIS special education teacher. We have some resignations. We have Leah Hunt, junior senior high school chemistry and physics teacher. Kylie Umerman at the Manchester Junior Senior High School study hall supervisor. Hunter Bosch, Manchester Junior Senior High School math teacher. John Paul Sechrist, Manchester Junior Senior High School special education teacher. Sarah Steely, Manchester Rise instructional assistant.
I entertain the motion to approve recommendations for approval 6.11 and 6.12. Mr. Brubaker?
I'll second it.
Mr. Raymer seconded. Any discussion, questions? The descriptions were in your packet for the new hires. All in favor, say aye. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Ramo, CARES Act 2.0.
Yes, we have given you an option A and an option B for the CARES Act. We are recommending option B to help us to be able to stabilize our financial situation. So any questions about either one of those?
What does the board think about combining the two lists into a C list? The B list has the $533,000 that we spent. You can see the breakout there for what we spent when we were shut down. So that would make us whole. And then we can make that number one and go back to A, whatever you guys want to do. I don't feel like it's an A or a B. It could be a combination of both going forward. I don't think anybody was aware when the A list was put together that we could make ourselves whole with CARES Act money for the money that we lost during COVID shutdown.
Just a quick question is, are these other items on B, are these things that we've already spent other than the key fobs, or are these future expenditures?
These would be expenses for next year. So for food service, we're looking at, we would have to rent some refrigerated trailers again this summer for our food distribution. That's into that. We're not sure if we're going to have to buy boxes to package the food in, and we're working with MPSA Farm on what that may look like, and some of those other additional expenses that help go into our summer food distribution. So that would be upcoming expense, as would our iReady subscription would be for the next school year. Zoom or the Google Meet subscription would also be for the next school year. Those are yearly subscriptions. And then the certified sub costs are something that we would recoup back that we've already expended out. And then the key fobs would be the piece coming forward for this summer. So that's what it would look like. Many of your items that were presented at the last board meeting in option A are things that we could carry forward into CARES 3.0 to help with that 20% learning gap that we're going to have to designate items for. Many of those items that were in A would be shifted to 3, which that application should open sometime this month, and then it's supposed to be submitted by mid-June. So as of right now, that's our best guidance on that one. So a lot of those things could be expensed into the next school year as well.
When are we gonna get the 2.0 funds and the 3.0 funds?
The 2.0 funds, it's all reimbursable. So once we expend the dollars, then we submit for reimbursement. So I have to submit this application by Friday. And once I do that, then if the state approves it all, then once we make the expenditures, which we know we already made those, the very top one, reimburse classified staff salaries, we could reimburse ourselves. There's like 2 times a month you can do it, and then they send the money to us. So, and CARES 3.0 is apparently going to work the same way. Whenever we submit the application and then we start expending, once they approve it, then they'll start reimbursing as we request reimbursement.
The full-time guidance counselor, is that gonna be a 3.0 thing now? Or is that gonna be, are we gonna be able to get that done before the next school year?
All of the 3.0, the application would be due by mid-June supposedly, so whatever we fold into 3.0, we could put in place before the school year.
Thank you.
What is the net effect of option A or B now? Why would we do this?
Essentially, option B, what it will allow us to do is recoup our expenses, at least $533,000 worth of expenses that we paid out last spring to classified staff. When you guys signed the resolution to pay them during that time, we can recoup that and put some of that money, those amounts back into our education fund, back into our operations fund, and try to help our funds, give us obviously more cash flow, and try to balance ourselves and get us out of some of that,
So
money issues.
And I'm just kind of stating that, just to kind
Sure.
of get that out. Are we, on the whole thing with the teacher pay and the future and stuff like that, do we have that in mind on to spend on this in the future then? How we're gonna balance that?
Yeah, I mean, that's discussions that we're gonna have, with the new legislation and teacher pay recommendation to get them to 40,000 and those type of things. That goes into effect in 2022, so not this next year. But the state has to give us more guidance on all of that and what all of that looks like, and they haven't done that yet.
Thank you both for doing that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Jeremy,
It's really about recouping our costs that we have to put out, so. go ahead.
is there any way, in the past, in the short period of time I've been here, we've talked about our shrinking rainy day fund. Is there any way that this money can be, even some of it put in there? I'm not condoning that we have to build that to our projected $1 million, but
Right. Yeah.
is that an option?
It would help, obviously, as we recoup some of those expenses into our accounts. Then at the end, towards the end of our year, December, some of those extra monies we could move into a rainy day fund and help try to build that up. So, yeah, all of that is pieces of this that we'd like to try to accomplish.
Thank you.
And that won't come until we start the budget process because you have to submit
Right.
that to DLG,
Right.
so.
Right. I just didn't know if it was on the radar or an option, so thank you.
Could you explain why when we found out about the 533,000, I mean, last month we talked about the other list, why didn't we just add that at the top of that list to make ourselves whole and then go right down the other list that we talked about? Why did we come up with a whole other list when
Yeah,
we
well,
knew this deadline was gonna be on Friday?
Most of these things were already on that A list. Everything was on the A list with the exception of the reimbursement of classified staff. So we added that to this B once we figured we could try to recoup some of those expenses, and then knowing that the majority of those other items, we could still get those things, but we could do it through 3.0. Right now, our preliminary 3.0 is like 1.7 million that we would be getting, so we could spread some of those other things out in that 3.0, knowing that 20% of that will have to go to the learning gap.
No, I don't have any questions.
I'll move to accept option B.
I second it.
We have a Motion, second. Any further discussion?
I do have one question. Robbie asked a question about a full-time counselor for the future. That is in our radar for 3.0.
We've had discussions about that or outsourcing therapists. So it'll be one of those we would bring to you at 3.0.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got a problem with, I'm hearing could, and we're gonna talk about it, and the conversation's been ongoing since last year, and we've lived through COVID, and we have one person running between buildings. That person has twice the amount of recommended students, and I'd just like to hear a commitment that we're gonna get this done for the start of the 21-22 school year. I mean, the social and the emotional gaps, this money was supposed to help with learning, and we got kids out there suffering, and, we're sitting here talking about well over $2 million, and it just kind of disturbs me that we're talking about we could do that, or we might do that. I guess I'd like to hear a commitment that we're gonna get that done. So I don't know if you guys wanna modify your motion, or.
I will support, I don't know what I'll support, but it needs to happen. And I know that's a vague statement, but we definitely need this done.
Well, I think most of the board feels that way, so
Right.
it's really up to us to do that. So, I mean, I feel pretty good that it'll happen, but it's really up to us.
Mr. Markham, with this reimbursement that we offer CARES Act 2, can we go ahead and hire someone of that nature, that qualification for next year, and get then reimbursed again for CARES Act 3? What, because of it?
We would need to make the hire, expend the dollars, and then reimburse
From CARES
for
Act 3?
it. But, yeah, I mean, if you as a board feels that a guidance counselor is important and needs to be a part of it, then we'll put it in 3.0. I've heard mixed responses about that, so.
We're getting mixed reviews,
So, I mean, yeah, we'll present. and
Whom are you getting mixed reviews from?
Well, some board members told me that they were getting heartburn over putting it in there because it was not sustainable at this point, so
Okay. Thank you for that answer.
what the majority of you are doing, so if the majority of you want that to happen, we can make that happen.
You answered my question, thank you.
Is it down to a guidance counselor now, and the mental health things is outsourced by the school? Is that where we're at with this thing? And you guys gotta remember, we'll find this, the clock's right. I mean, we've got a strategic plan to put together too on a lot of this stuff. So I don't know, where that's gonna shake out in as far as safety goes with the strategic plan or anything. So just to kind of get this thing moving, do you wanna revise the list?
Yeah, that's what I had asked for in the beginning. We talked about the A list last month, and now we've been presented with a B list, and I guess I'm a little confused. I thought we were gonna do like we did with the MIS thing, go through it and take the recommendations. I mean, we got recommendations on A list, and from that meeting to this meeting, now they've all changed because we got this 500,000, so. I mean, if you look at the A list and look where the mental health and the counselor were, they were clear up at the top. And now they're not even on the list. So, and that month,
Definitely like the recovery part. I mean, if you guys want, somebody gotta say something here. What's on the A list besides that you feel like we should?
they brought us a
Does
priority.
anybody else have anything off the A list?
Can you put the A list up there, please?
Would it be possible, we have a motion on the table, which we don't need to vote on yet, but to approve B with the understanding that there's a priority on the guidance counselor position?
Which it would fit really well into 3.0
Right.
because it really goes, we have to address the learning gap and that's part of it. So,
And then the board would need to commit to making it sustainable. If
Yes.
that's a worry of the board.
yes.
It's just,
You said that was in
That's what
June,
Shelly
right?
Lifer said.
right, yeah, which makes sense. I mean,
3.0 is in June, which means that we can theoretically make that happen before the beginning of the year.
3.0 will still make it happen before next school year, so
Yeah.
don't worry
You
about
got
that.
16 days left or something like that, right? Close to that.
Because we still have to pay for it up front, and that wouldn't start until August anyway for their salaries, so.
I guess if this is all circling around my question, I will accept 2 or 3 as long as we get some sort of commitment from us as a board, or whoever needs to make the commitment that this happens.
That's fine, we
I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to mean to sound forceful, but in my mind, it needs to happen. We have a lot of kids that have a lot of needs that don't get addressed in their daily lives, and like Becky's food program and everything else, our school is becoming a place where the kids need to get the help they need. So I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, like I said, I apologize if I got this wrong. I thought this was a prioritized list that was brought to the meeting and we talked about last month, and this is what we were gonna approve, and now we got another list. And I get that we need to make ourselves whole first. I don't understand why this just wasn't put at the top if this was the prioritized list. You know, I mean, obviously there's more, and have you gotten any feedback, Jeremy, from the state? Is any of this stuff on this list gonna get kicked out?
I don't know, until I submit it,
Okay.
and I have till Friday to do that, so.
If you submit it and it's kicked back, do they give you another 3 days to come up with another program, or?
Yeah, they'll give me a little time to either provide more information on something that maybe they have a question about, and then, or they may say, no, you need to replace those monies. And that's fine, we don't have to do it that second.
That's fine.
If they approve the other items, we can move forward with those, and then I can come back and say, look, they didn't approve item X for $50,000. We're gonna have $50,000 that we're gonna have to allocate to something, and we can determine what that is.
Any other further discussion or questions? Okay, would you read your motion again, Mr. Shaw? So we're clear?
Yeah, I move to accept option B for the allocation of spending for CARES 2.0.
And Mr. Raymer, you seconded, correct?
Correct.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Looks like it's 6-1. I vote no. Sustainable Energy Alternative Class. Dr. Gramo, is Sue gonna present this again or review it? or-
No, we already presented it, and if
Okay.
you have any questions about it, we're asking to be able to start this sustainable energy alternative class for the 2021 school year. Anybody have any questions?
I'd entertain a motion to approve it.
I'll move to approve.
I'm sorry, was that you, Rick?
Yep.
That was Mr. Esposito, second. Mr. Hensley, all in favor?
Did you have a, okay. never mind.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Further discussion?
Just a quick question, just a clarification. It's covered, is it covered by a grant for a couple of years? The teacher?
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay, all right, and then we would cover it after the grant is finished, which should not be an
Hopefully it
issue.
will be able to sustain itself. That's
Very good.
the whole point.
Okay, thank you.
It's more like a pilot. Let's see if it's gonna work. It's gonna fly.
Sounds like a plan.
I apologize for
kids in it.
my misstep there. Does anybody else have any more questions? Discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Administrative contract renewal, Dr. Vermel.
Actually, Mr. Markham will take that one.
Okay, we're asking for those individuals that have a one-year contract, those will be coming up at the end of June. We're asking for your approval to roll those contracts over to next school year, starting July 1. That would carry them through June 30 of 2022. And then those individuals that are on a 2-year contract, they will just be finishing up their 1 year of that at the end of June here, asking for your approval to roll those an additional year so that they're back on that 2-year contract. So that is what we're looking for your approval. There is no monetary changes to what the current salary is, none of that. This is just a roll of the contract only. Any monetary changes that would come in the fall after we do bargaining with the Teachers Association and those type of things, if there are any type of increases.
Entertain a motion to approve. Mr. Brubaker,
So we're just rolling the contracts, correct? Yeah.
were you seconding, Mr.
Yes.
Raymer? We have a motion by Mr. Brubaker and a second by Mr. Raymer to approve it. Any discussion, questions? All in favor, signify by aye. Motion carries 7-0. Approval of summer youth camp for boys and girls basketball, volleyball, boys and girls soccer, and boys and girls tennis.
Yep, we're just asking for approval for those camps. It's standard. It's something that we've done each year.
I mean, it's camps, we want it, kids love it, parents want it, kids out of the house for a bit, kids want to go to it, just like we do every year. Very, very popular event, very important. We try to line up so kids can do lots of camps, so we appreciate it.
Well, I don't think sports is any different than learning, right?
What's that?
I don't think sports is any different than learning.
I don't look at it like it is.
Last year, you know, that's gotta affect,
Yeah.
you know, the kids, so.
And these are all on our campus here, Jen?
I believe so. I believe they're all on our campus, all over the campus. Yeah, I mean, usually this might come like in March or April, but with COVID, they kind of needed to wait to make sure. And so our numbers have been good. We lean on our nurse that's here today and appreciate you. I don't know about my contract, but I appreciate you renewing her contract, so we need her. So, but the camps are just very popular, very reasonable, and kids do a lot of them. You know, they get involved with a lot of the different camps. So,
Is there a cost to the kids for this?
there is, and is it one size fits all, Jeremy? I'm not sure what the cost is.
Each sport's a little unique in what they charge. I think it's anywhere from $20 to $30 for the week to participate. And usually, most of them have bought T-shirts and they get a camp T-shirt. And some of the other sports will do other things throughout the week for the students, and they have competitions and things like that. So,
You know, that cost is really, it's a good thing, because I know in some high schools, they kind of rig you know, hundreds of dollars for camp, and this is very reasonable. So, you know, they get a week of camp, maybe, you know, a couple hours. It's a good deal.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Hensley, who seconded?
Wow.
Rick did.
Rick?
Rick did.
Yeah, hello.
We knew you.
Any further questions?
What age, just curious, what age groups are these camps for?
yeah,
Well, I think they vary, but
yeah, they do vary. Most of them are at least kindergarten through 8th grade. They may offer, some only go to 6th grade. No,
Will there be
Yeah,
Right.
they'll advertise it and they'll get
Okay.
the information out. If you approve them, my guess is that they'll send all those registrations home with those particular age groups before the end of school.
Okay.
Once they
Thanks.
get in high school, they use
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
coach.
All in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Libby. Key fob vendor, Mr. Markham, I believe.
Yes, thank you. Asking for your approval this evening is our recommendation to go with Technology Contracting Services, TCSI. They were the group that provided the second presentation at the work session. Both groups did a great job. Both are pretty close in price with their quote. We just feel with TCSI, we know what they've done at MSD, Wabash City. They're out of Fort Wayne. We know kind of the localness about them. We did have a chance for them to connect with Mr. Miller and IT to go through those items. If there were any issues, there were no issues. Pretty straightforward installation on that end with the networking and all those type of things. So it is our recommendation to move forward with them. If you approve that, basically we would cut them a PO and then they would start the ordering process. Once they get the items in, which they feel they don't have any delays in any materials at this point, that we could get that scheduled to be done this summer in a 4 to 6 week time frame.
And entertain a motion for the recommendation.
I'll move to approve.
Mr. Esposito, second. Mr. Raymer. Discussion?
Yeah, Jeremy, did you have, you and or Tony meet with both vendors?
No, we picked the one we thought that we would first want to check with, that we thought we would recommend or bring to you. So we know we just met with TCSI on that end.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have a question. What do we really know what these products are? We had 15 minutes as a board, and you and Mr. Miller had X amount of time discussing whether or not it fits with our systems, which we have no systems, so it fits perfectly. So I'm wondering, how do we really know what we're buying, except for the fact that Wabash and MSD and Heartland have it? My question is, without sounding biased, are we buying a specific, the best system we can? And I would ask this whether or not we were looking at the Perry system or the TCSI. Do we really know what we're buying? If all we want is doors that open and close with locks, we can get that at Home Depot and we can save a whole lot of money. We're buying these systems because they do a lot more security involved and how we can build with along the way. So that's my only question. You questioned one company, but you didn't question the other company. So did you really do the due diligence of going through and doing what we couldn't do, which is 15 minutes of introduction of what the products are? That's my only concern with this. We had 3 and we went down to 2, and you threw this because the other schools have it in the county. So I'm wondering, how comfortable do you feel about knowledge of this system based upon the other system and the capabilities?
Hate to put you on the spot there, but Mr. Miller, do you have anything to add to that question?
I'm just wanting to make sure we get the best system for what we're investing in.
I only had the opportunity to speak to Mark and Brian. That's what I was asked to do. When we discussed the implementation based upon their requirements, that we would have to provide network connections, and that is pretty straightforward, virtually no cost to us. In that respect, we just need to provide space in our data centers to do so. So as far as the requirements of what that system needs to be done, nothing was specified to me in that regard. I have to admit I had the assumption that you folks had put that together when you were looking at it, so.
Any other questions?
So I take that as we don't know what we're buying, other than a key fob system.
Well, Ron, the easiest way to do this is, you can go down the road here to one of these other schools in the county and benchmark, and then take yourself somewhere where this other system is, and benchmark it, be my suggestion, but, I mean, I do personally get comfort knowing that it's the same system the other ones in the county. I do not know whether it's the best system or not, like you're saying, you know, and that's why I asked them the questions I asked them. I just saw a little gig on the internet where, I don't know what country it is in, but kind of ransomware right on the school system operating software for their doors and stuff, so never know what's gonna happen in the future. But, that would be, instead of hanging up here another 45 minutes on this one, you know, if we feel we need to, you know, more information, then I'd suggest somebody take a little road trip and compare them. I mean, that's kind of what I went off from listening to them, and the fact that the other system's already in the county, and they basically didn't have any issues, whether they did or not, who knows? I mean, Jeremy, did you speak to the other?
I spoke with the other business managers at the other buildings, and they didn't have any negative things to say, and everything seemed to be functioning for what the purpose is for them. So that's what I've gathered. I'm not a key fob expert myself, so obviously I'm going through what their presentations were, recommendations of others that have used it. There's probably better, but I don't know that we want to pay the most expensive either. So I'm bringing the recommendation, and it's up to you as the board to determine what you want to do with it from there.
Again, I got a comfort level with it after talking to the county SRO officer. You know, he's in all the buildings. He's reported no problems. It's a pretty seamless, easy to run system. I spoke to another administrator in the county, actually two administrators in the county, and you know, every once in a while they had a proximity switch or something go bad, but the company was immediately responsive, and so I'm comfortable with it. Plus, they are $4,000 cheaper. So, unless there's any further discussion, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any other questions? Jeremy? Dr. Gamel? All in favor? Say aye. So we have 6.
Abstain.
You're abstaining. We have 6 in favor and 1 abstention. Dr. Grammel?
Are we ready for 6.7? Okay. 6.7, I'm going to have Mr. Self put on the screen our spreadsheet that we have been using for enrollment by grade. And we went through and looked at all of our classes and what our needs were for next year. And we have found that we have 3 vacated positions. There are not staff in those positions. 1 at MES, which is 1st grade, 1 at MIS, and then 1 at the junior-senior high school. And the reason we didn't say what position was, we did have a math teacher that had left, but we were able to rearrange some staff and cover that position. And if you look, I don't have that in front of me, and it's really far away, so I have to look at my own. If you look where it's highlighted in yellow, that's what we are recommending for the class size.
Dr. Grammel, I'm having trouble hearing. Could you please state basically,
What I said all over again?
not all of it, just the reasonings from like MES on.
Okay, so we're looking at a first grade position at MES, a sixth grade position at MIS, and one position at the high school. And these were determined based on what you see up here, were the class sizes. These are our projected class sizes. And we use the numbers, I believe Mr. Markham just updated it, so we lost a few more students. I think we've actually lost, what, 12 since count day on February
15.
15th? It went up then. So we have continued to lose students. These are, again, are positions without staff in them. So we're eliminating them. We can always add them back. But if we keep them in place, we will have to hire a teacher come fall. So we are eliminating those positions as of right now because the numbers do not warrant us to keep those 3 positions. Is that making sense? Now that you can hear me, right?
Randy, could you enlarge that? Sorry.
Yeah, I was having trouble.
Sorry, what part do you want to see?
Highlighted looks important.
That right there?
Yeah.
We even have the number of paras that are in those grade levels over in column D. I don't know if you can even see that. So even if there's some that are a little bit high, you can see that there's like, the only one that's really starting to creep up there is that 6th grade? 5th grade? But we still have 3 paras that are typically in that grade level supporting those teachers. And many times, if you look at, I compare with the surrounding schools and the area, a lot of the class sizes are up around 30 with no paras. So we're still in really good shape, but if we continue, if we start getting students, then we'll start adding back positions. So that is the recommendation at this time.
Do we have a number in mind? I don't see a set number here where we're actually doing the riffs or eliminating the position. Do we have a number? And it's a 2-part question. One, we got this recommendation here. If we get to 25, are we going to hire a para to help that teacher that's got 25 in the classroom? And I've asked this question before and I never really got a straight answer. I'm looking at the class ratio over there with 3 teachers, and I know it's not highlighted, but I mean, would we really consider having a class with 32 in it? My question is there a number between where we're going to riff and where we're going to hire a teacher back that we put a para in, and what is that number where we're going to say, okay, now it's time to hire a teacher?
Right. And I can tell you what the discussion we had with MTA is, we monitor these numbers with the principals, with the teachers on an ongoing basis. I can tell you I will start monitoring them in July and figuring out what we have coming in, where we're at. I would not say there is a magic number because I feel like that's a conversation that we need to have based on the number of pairs there, based on the grade level. I would never, ever recommend a class of 33, 32. I would never do that. I've been a teacher, I've been in that situation. I care about what they're going through, but it is a conversation because there's, okay, you have 22 students and you add 1. Does that mean that you need another teacher? Well, maybe not. Let's just talk through that. So I hate to put qualifiers on that, knowing there's so many variables that can happen. So I would love to be able to just work that out with the principals, the teachers. We can tell, we got the heartbeat on whether they can handle it or not handle it. So absolutely, I've been there. I've been a teacher with 28 in my class and no aid, so I absolutely get it. And I wouldn't want to do that to anybody.
So what I'm hearing is there is no magic number on the high end or the low end.
Not really. it's just trying to figure out what's gonna work for best for that group of kids. You may have 50% of your class that's very high needs, social, emotional. You might have some students that are very challenging. Well, maybe that's a class of 18. So it's really, there's a lot that factors into that, a lot of variables, and I'd hate to put a qualifier on that because there are so many variables there.
Thank you.
I
So-
see teachers shaking their heads, so I'm good.
Is kindergarten with the dual language starting next year, are we going to have five classrooms going?
We're recommending 4 at this time.
Okay, we have 4 teachers currently in kindergarten.
We're
And if we add
recommending
a
4
Spanish, if we add a
teachers.
Spanish teacher, the Spanish speaking,
The Spanish would be
kindergarten.
one of those 4 teachers.
okay, so what's gonna happen with one of those?
Well, that's for Mrs. Corris to move around and put where she needs to put them. Unfortunately, she's not here to kind of share that with you, but
Well, we have 85 kindergartners signed up today. I don't know how many people we have signed up for the dual language program or applications. But for us to have 4 seems a little premature.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you can always hire one
Right.
if the enrollment goes up.
You don't hire them prior to having your chickens lay the eggs.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, so this just, I mean, if we don't get them, this gives us the option to have 4.
And you also have 92 for 3rd grade and you have 99 for 2nd grade. So 7 less people equals 1 less teacher. So, I don't know. It's the highest percentage. How many teachers do we have in 7th grade?
I mean, they're shared, it's a tough.
7th grade? What's the 7th grade team? How many
The
do we have?
electives, I mean, there's electives, I mean, you've got Jeff, you've got Sharon, you've got the core group.
The
It's
core,
hard to
the
put a
core
number.
team. The core team. How many do we have in 7th grade?
Or you want to include PE? I mean,
No,
I'm
not the electives, core.
That'd be a core, they're all required, so I'm kind of confused. So math, Greg, you got.
Dr.
English.
Lippy, please step to the podium so we get this. We're live streaming. I don't think they can hear you. Thank you.
I'm saying that we have 121 students in 7th grade now that were in 6th grade. So I want to make sure, or how many teachers do we have in 7th grade? So I know this is your job, and that's great. We're talking about riffing here, and
It
wanna
doesn't
make
work
sure.
the same, it just doesn't work the same way because so many different teachers teach different grades. Like, we've got 7 teachers, I've got a 7th grade teacher that teaches an AP human geography course. It's not pure like that. I apologize, but it's just not pure. They're split all over the place. I mean, band and choir shared with MIS. You know, I've got art teachers who are shared. I got a part-time art teacher. It's hard to put a number on that. I mean, I could go down and tell you you've got an English teacher, a math teacher, a social studies, a science teacher. There's your core, but those kids have, 3 other classes. Study hall, some have study hall, some don't. It's just hard to put a handle on that like that.
Okay, that's the big class that's moving up to 7th. So anyway.
And I would just add too that we are obligated by law, if we're gonna riff, we have to do it before July 1st. I feel like if we're gonna do it, we owe the teachers as soon as we can do that, we owe them that. But we don't have any people in the position, but we do need to do that to cover ourselves. So we're not paying for 3 additional positions that we don't necessarily need. We may in the future, but right now we do not.
Well, the most concerning part to me is the fact that we lost 12 more students, right? So, I mean, the reduction in force is, kind of about those numbers, but one, I think it was in the January meeting when we were talking administrative RIF, we didn't feel we were gonna have any risks at all, I thought was the statement that was made in there. So that kind of bothers me a little bit, the fact that, you know, we need to check and balance. If the numbers are gonna keep going down, there needs to be a little balance between that. But then we come out with the CARES money, and we've got this list to build an empire. That was my statement, by the way, in the last meeting, was the fact that, you know, we're adding on a lot of people when the numbers are going down. We got a free fall of money, but the first thought is to build the empire a little bit when we're looking at that. So I would, you know, we're kind of in a position to look at RIF now legally, you know, in the time frame. At the same point, I can kind of understand the point of if we were looking to hire all these people, you know, with the CARES Act until we decided to get smart and reimburse ourselves, then we've got 3 teachers here. They don't, you know, these positions don't fit. I mean, are we gonna like rip these positions and then move those positions somewhere else where they fit better? Again, a capacity demand plan will help. I mean, you actually have the start of it kind of right there, but just to understand where things are shifting around in some of the workforce issues. So you've talked to the MTA already about this?
Yes.
No problem.
And actually, Mr. Hensley, when we talked about riffing people way back in January, we were talking people, not positions. These are empty positions. So that's probably the difference.
Well, you're looking at this as attrition versus
Yes,
we're displacing
correct.
somebody. I
We're
understand.
just trying to right
that
size
part.
the district in ways that will not hurt our staff, because we really care about our staff. We want them, you know, to make sure they're taken care of. None of us like this, but it's our reality, so.
Could you clarify one thing? I think I understood what you were saying. If we were riffing people and we don't do it by July 1, then we have to pay them for the whole year. In this scenario, we're not riffing any people. We're just riffing open positions, correct?
Just open positions.
So it's not gonna cost us any money.
It would if we still had open positions.
Can
We'd
you
have to
explain
fill
that?
them.
Oh, you have to fill them if you
Yeah,
don't riff
based
it?
on, I think it's IRB that's the ones that tells us we have to do that, so. We didn't used to have to do that, but they have recently in the last, I don't know, few years is when they started telling us we had to riff the positions. I know, strange, but that's, am I, and that's fine if you don't. That's fine.
Do we have a motion?
Okay, normally we do a motion in a second, then we have a discussion, but because of this presentation, we didn't do that. So, does somebody want to make a motion to approve the recommended riffs?
So moved.
Mr. Raymer?
Second.
Mr. Esposette, second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? 7-0.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is,
STEM. Oh,
yeah, 7.
Mrs. Janae.
If you want to put the slide presentation up. It's always fun to talk about things you're passionate about, and so I am super excited to be here to talk about our STEM certification. We found out that we were STEM certified, or the official announcement came out that we were STEM certified on Friday of last week. And so we will be displaying some pretty cool looking banners using the Indiana STEM Certified School logo that was provided to us. So I have provided in your packet my newsletter that I sent out that kind of explained the background of that, but I want to highlight a few things that I think are pretty cool. So, oh, am I supposed to use this now? All right, let's see if we can. These are screenshots from the Department of Education's STEM certification website. The map on the left shows all the different cohorts of STEM certified schools. So there are 7 different cohorts. We are cohort 7, the 7th one, and those are in brown. the thing that's interesting to me is if you kind of look at that map, you know, you go east of us and there aren't STEM certified schools in the Fort Wayne area or anywhere northeast Indiana. So then I kind of zoomed in a little bit just to show you, you know, we are the only STEM certified schools in Wabash County. There's none in Huntington, Whitley County, Allen County, I don't think even in Adams County. But anyway, pretty proud of that we were able to get all of our schools STEM certified. I looked at all the different cohorts and trying to find out, you know, most of them are elementary schools that get STEM certified, or they're special academies, like there's all kinds of like STEM academies or magnet schools. And so if you don't count the specialty academies, there are only 3 other districts, Hobart, Mount Vernon, and Northern Posey, that have their entire district STEM certified. So we are in an elite group there. There are only 5 high schools in the state that are STEM certified. The other 2 that add to what I said before would be Lagudi and Ben Davis. And so we're running with the big dogs when it comes to being STEM certified. So I'm super, super pleased with the work that we were able to do and the recognition that we received for that hard work. To move forward, speaking of hard workers, we had a lot of people involved in this process, and I apologize ahead of time if I've forgotten someone. I tried to copy and paste from all my notes. We formed a STEM innovation team. It's been almost 2 years ago we started these conversations. Actually, we've been talking about STEM for a long time, but to get super serious about it and look at the evaluation rubric and know that we're close and ready to pursue STEM certification. The people on the left there were integral to that. That included some Manchester University professors, an environmental education expert from North Carolina that just happens to be my daughter as well. And I also had some other colleagues from other areas, from Ohio, from all over Indiana, that reviewed the plan before we submitted it and gave us feedback. So you know, we had someone from, she's a publicist for National Science Teachers Association. She lives in Florida. She reviewed our plan for us. She's someone that Jabin met in his Glades trips. And so we really had input from literally all over the country. And so very appreciative of all the help people on that side and anyone else that I probably have forgotten. And then, so we submitted our application and we learned that we qualified to be STEM certified. 2 of the schools had to resubmit to upgrade a couple of items on our rubric, but all 3 earned the virtual site visit. So we had to form our site visit teams, and you can see the members of those teams to the right. To say that was an intense process is probably an understatement. Erica's shaking her head. She was involved in that. Dr. Lippy was also involved in that. The DOE Zoomed with us. Randy did an excellent job getting all the technology set up for that, and that went flawlessly. So, you know, we introduced ourselves. We created STEM videos because they couldn't come into our building, so we had the virtual tour, a video that was created that Randy helped put together. And then they quizzed us. We had to defend why we thought we should be STEM certified in all the different domains of the rubric. We spoke to the different elements of that. Everyone contributed, and I love just listening to everyone talk about STEM and how that was working in their building. And, you know, we would say something and then, you know, I just remember Beth Rosine saying, and to piggyback off of that, you know, we also do this and we do this. And it was amazing, that whole process. And so then after we got off our virtual visit, we waited, I don't know, I think it was a week, and then we learned that we were STEM certified in all those areas, but that was embargoed until last Friday. I want to show you just a quick clip from one video. All of this stuff is linked to the website, and so these are things that you can explore further, but this gives you a quick example of, and I'm only going to play the first bit of this, of what we had to put together for STEM certification. So.
Manchester Elementary School, located in the rural town of North Manchester, Indiana, serves approximately 408 students in grades pre-K through 3. Exemplifying the district's STEM vision, Never Stop Wondering, Manchester Elementary sets high standards for curriculum integration and authentic STEM learning experiences. At the elementary level, STEM project-based learning activities are woven into each grade level's scope and sequence. Using phenomenon-based lesson hooks and I wonder questioning, our youngest scientists and engineers are encouraged to be curious, deep thinkers and innovative problem solvers. Learning intentions and success criteria are developmentally progressive and focus on the process as much or more than the product. STEM at Manchester Elementary School is driven by authentic place-based learning. At the earliest ages, students are referred to as practicing scientists and engineers. Exemplary resources in the hands of stellar educators has allowed MES to develop a STEM program that connects our youngest scientists and engineers to local issues and opportunities while introducing multiple career pathways and employability skills. The learning experiences provided to our students takes them from information consumers to practicing scientists and engineers. Students are immersed in STEM and computer science during their specials rotations, as well as in their classrooms. Aligning with the purpose and overarching goals established by the National Research Council and the MCS Strategic Plan, Manchester Elementary School aspires to do its part to ensure that by the end of 12th grade, all students have some appreciation of the beauty and wonder of science, possess sufficient knowledge of science and engineering to engage in public discussions on related issues, are careful consumers of scientific and technological information related to their everyday lives, and are able to continue to learn about science outside of school and have the skills to enter careers of their choice, including but not limited to careers in science, engineering, and technology.
So each one of those videos led that way, so we did the same thing for MIS and the same thing for the junior senior high school. And then Randy and I went through the buildings and filmed STEM project-based learning, things going on in all the classrooms, and that followed for each one of those videos as well. It was fun to watch the faces of our evaluators from the Department of Education, their smiles when they saw some of the things that we were doing. It just really reaffirmed that we were on the right track there. So I guess the last thing is just a few reflections on the process. And I did ask a few of our STEM innovation team members to contribute to the newsletter, and if you read that, you read some of their comments. Mary Randall talked about, she listened to the high school kids reflect on some of the STEM projects they had done in their classrooms and how that really helped them with some of their employability skills and just the practical things that they were taking away from projects they were doing. Jen Birch talked about kids jumping on board to, like the Project Lead the Way units that she's working through there, and just the coding things that we're able to do at that level. Jabin talked about the many times that we referenced, we wish we had a picture for that. So we learned a lot in the process of telling our story, and that's probably my biggest reflection is getting better at telling our story, and that is part of documenting and taking pictures and having evidence of all the great things that we're doing. But I think that Joel said it best, and I said this when I talked about STEM certification last Friday. Joel said it just puts a stamp of approval on what we already know is true for STEM education, that it's important, that it's memorable, that it's foundational, that it's inspirational, and it's much more. It's about being curious, asking good questions, and noticing the world around them. And it really helps our students to lay the framework for all their future careers, hobbies, and passions. And I just think that just hits the nail on the head right there. I guess for me, STEM certification isn't the end of our story, it's just the beginning. It's one of those first chapters. We have a lot of work yet to do and a lot of fun things that we want to accomplish when it comes to STEM education. We're trying to be creative. this year being creative means doing virtual field trips instead of actual field trips. In some cases, we have a district-wide sea turtle event coming up at the end of the month on May 21st. We're actually, students are learning about sea turtles in their classes. They're developing questions they want to ask experts. We have people from Fort Caswell Environmental Education Center, North Carolina, sending us videos about sea turtles. And then on the 21st, we're going to do Zoom calls, and students get to ask these experts questions. So it's a creative way to take a field trip to the East Coast without actually all those expenses of doing that. So a lot of fun things planned for STEM, and you know, with the addition of computer science and all of these things that that we know we're getting better at, it's just exciting for Manchester. Do you have any questions?
No. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say good job. I actually had an industry advisory board meeting today at Purdue Fort Wayne. I mean, it was remote, but I got, I don't know, 3 or 4 people kind of pinged me and said, hey, nice job over in Manchester on your STEM certification. So it's a hugely promotable thing for the corporation, and we are one in Wabash, but it's kind of funny with that group over there. They're looking on, you know, a couple of the group's whole mission is to find out how to get more schools into STEM and build relationships with Purdue, Fort Wayne. So if you guys have any ideas on that in the future, especially, I suppose that would be in John's school's kitchen, you know, the closer we get something like that, I would be happy to introduce you to some folks on, it's mostly industry folks, that's who's kind of trying to lead that.
And it's interesting because even before the official STEM certification, I've had schools, you know, I'm in the curriculum council for Region 8, and I've become sort of the go-to person for anything related to STEM, and I've had a lot of curriculum directors reach out and say, can we come visit? Can you tell us? Can you look at our curriculum? What are some suggestions? So we're getting noticed in that way. And Dr. Jeffrey Nowak from Purdue Fort Wayne called me and offered 2 positions in a grant that he's working through for our teachers, because he knows that if he offers those positions to our teachers, we're going to use the material, and it's going to benefit our program. So exciting.
Yes, I do. She's not going to tell you, but this doesn't happen without her. And I know you probably already know that. I mean, we've gotten close. We've got an amazing team, unbelievable teachers sitting at that table, a lot of different entities. But we don't get close without her. I mean, she's the one that put us over the top. So it is what it is. When we were doing that presentation, and they were like wanting a piece of us, like, can you show others how to do this? Like how you're doing this? Because of her. She's amazing. So very fortunate to be working with her.
I would just echo that hours and hours and hours have went into that from the teachers, you know, also, you know, not just these people, but Mr. Self too, and he was right in there with all the filming, and it was amazing to watch them work through this process. So it's a really, really big deal, a great big feather in our cap. So we're really, really proud of that work. So thank you all.
I'd like to offer my congratulations to the whole team. You made us look good. Good job.
Thank you.
Anybody else? .2.
Okay, we're gonna
Go ahead.
ask Alex to come on up. He has been exploring options for virtual academy. So he's just gonna kind of tell you the road he's been down, conversations he's had, and I'll let you take it over there.
Perfect, thank you, and thank you to you guys for hearing me out tonight. And a thank you to our teachers. I've said this every time I've talked to anybody about it, this is a compilation of feedback from talking to teachers. And other districts, things that they liked, that they did well, things that I think we can utilize to make our virtual offering better in the future. So it's really all feedback from people that have lived this and done this on a daily basis to try to create a better version of a virtual option for our students moving forward. So the first thing, where am I pointing?
You're not on a...
Nope, all right.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
You're not on a PowerPoint.
No problem. So one of the first things that we kind of, I mean, talking to our teachers in the building and that are living this every day, they thought it was worthwhile, and I agree with them, to say that we still believe that in-person learning, that a traditional classroom setting is the most effective education that we can offer a student. But we do recognize that in some cases, COVID being one of them, and in others, there is a need to provide an alternative option, a virtual option. So we don't want to shortchange that all of a sudden we think that virtual solves all of our problems. We know that in-person learning is better, but we also recognize that a need exists. So this is an attempt to try and fill that. So the first thing we wanted to do is figure out, okay, if we're going to create a virtual program, who do we want this to be available to? Because we want to make sure that it is servicing the students that can benefit from it the most. The students that have some sort of a medical situation where being in person is a little more challenging. So for next school year, our proposal would be that our virtual option be available, our virtual academy be available to students in grades 9 through 12, and that there are certain criteria that we consider when deciding who is and who is not eligible for that virtual program. The first of which is an individual student's academic history. If there's a track record of a student struggling in a virtual setting, then maybe it isn't the best setting for them and they do need to return to the classroom. We have at this point, for a lot of our student body, I don't want to say put it on a percentage, but for a large number, all of last spring and for the bulk of this school year to kind of use as a track record for how they did virtually. Some of them it was fantastic, it's been a great experience and they've succeeded, and for others it's been a real struggle, so we want to make sure we consider those. A signed accountability guidelines agreement, and we'll get to the accountability guidelines here in just a moment. An individual student's academic goals. And really what this has to do with is the type of diploma that is available to those students that are virtual. At least through their first 2 years, definitely through their freshman year, and more than likely through their sophomore year of high school, we can account for all graduation pathways, or all diploma types rather, virtually. When they get to their junior and senior year and upper level courses are required, AP level courses are required, dual credit courses are required for an academic honors diploma, our teachers over and over again have said that those courses are very, very, very difficult to teach well virtually and for students to succeed in virtually. So that being said, we would probably shy away from 11th and 12th graders being virtual if they are seeking an academic honors diploma. A medical exemption that is accompanied by a doctor's note that necessitates a student being virtual is obviously something that needs to be considered when deciding who is and who is not eligible to be a virtual student. Right? We have several students that I can think of in the high school currently that maybe this hasn't been the slam dunk we hoped it would be for them, but their medical situation necessitates that they stay at home and that we service them virtually. And then lastly, they must be an Indiana resident. In order to receive funding for a virtual student, they have to be an Indiana resident. So all MJSHS virtual students will be subject to these eligibility criteria because again, teachers over and over again said we want to make sure this is a program that benefits the students that stand to benefit from it the most, not just here's a free-for-all and let's see what happens type of approach. That would be something they would be very, very leery of moving forward. So from there, we started looking at numbers as to how many virtual students do we have currently. Now these are just virtual students, these do not include students that are currently hybrid. And it also does not include, just the way the numbers worked out, our current 7th graders, which will be our 8th graders next year, and our current seniors, which next year will have graduated and moved on, are our two largest groups of virtual students in the junior senior high school. So if you count next year's 9th through 12th graders, it's right around 40 students that would currently be in this program had it existed during this school year. The next thing we wanted to do is talk to our CTE teachers as it pertains to their pathways and programs of study to decide which courses or which pathways are even available virtually. And the more we had those conversations with our teachers, we recognized that things like pottery are very hard to teach virtually. Landscape management is very hard to teach virtually. Horticulture is very hard to teach virtually. Things that require you to be in the shop are very hard to teach virtually and do it effectively. Right, so the question for our CTE teachers was, which courses can we teach virtually, which pathways and programs of study can we make available to virtual students. That way we make sure that they are also receiving a quality of education that resembles those of our in-person learners. Again, I understand that when we look at this, it does feel like we're limiting who it's available to, but my intention the whole time, and our intention the whole time, has been to make sure that this is a program that benefits the students that stand to benefit the most from it. The next component of our proposal so far, and just the feedback that we've gathered at this point, has been the accountability component. As you discuss it with teachers over and over again, the accountability piece has been frustrating at times for our staff. So what we've kind of said is we think that it is perfectly reasonable to assume that a mandatory meeting for, and I understand in a lot of cases it would need to be a Zoom meeting, but a mandatory meeting needs to be held prior to the start of the school year for all incoming virtual students to outline expectations, requirements, and so on. We already have these sorts of meetings for students that attend Squire Academy, for those that participate in our work-based learning program, and those that attend Heartland Career Center. So just a little bit of an alternative educational path to make sure that everybody's on the same page, requirements, guidelines, all of those sorts of things. Another thing that I heard from another district that I'd spoken to is the idea of in and out dates, because over and over again what we've seen is that they termed them as transitional students, students that are transitioning from virtual to traditional and back and forth multiple times in the course of a year. It creates learning gaps, and it creates gaps that are really, really hard to fill after the fact. And it's also a nightmare for teachers to try to figure out who the heck's going to be in the classroom on a daily basis when all of a sudden little Johnny decided that he's going to be out for 2 weeks, or he's going to be out for a month to be virtual. So what they established, and what I think is a really, really good idea, are to utilize what we've termed in and out dates. And essentially what that would allow is for our virtual students to have opportunities during the course of the school year to transition in and out of the program at their discretion. Right? So students and families would have the opportunity to elect to be virtual at the start of the school year and then again at the start of the second semester. If they were already enrolled in the virtual program and they wish to transition back to being an in-person traditional learner, they have the opportunity to do so at the beginning of each 9-week grading period. Right? So it's easier to transition back to traditional school than it is to transition into a virtual setting. And we'll get to the accountability guidelines and exactly what that entails here in just a moment. But basically, and again, this was kind of done in concert with conversations with other districts. Setting up a chart where, you know, if you can't live by the guidelines of being a good virtual student, and again, we have plenty of virtual students that have done really, really well with this. We need to make sure that we're holding those students accountable. So in the first time that there's a violation of those guidelines, it becomes incumbent upon the teacher to contact the parents and discuss why the violation occurred, what the situation was, and make sure that we have some sort of a resolution for moving forward. The second violation would be myself as the remote learning coordinator or a building administrator contacting, and again, contacting and having a conversation. It needs to be filtered in there, because we have too many times where the parent comes back and says, well, I didn't get the message. Well, your student hasn't attended a Zoom meeting for the last 3 days. Just saying I didn't get the voicemail is not necessarily a satisfactory response in that case. And then the third time, if there's a third violation of our accountability guidelines in a semester, the student will be returned to in-person learning effective at the start of the following school week. So if that third violation occurs on a Wednesday, they return to school in person on Monday for not being able to live up to the accountability guidelines. And over again, the accountability component was what our teachers asked for most commonly. So what do those include? Well, students will attend all required Zoom meetings and participate in class activities at the discretion of the classroom teacher. For some of our teachers, that means you're Zooming into their classroom 5 times a week, every single day. For some of them, that might mean 2 or 3 times a week, depending on what the class schedule looks like for the week. Student work and due dates and late work and all those sorts of things, it's been my opinion, and in talking to classroom teachers, they would echo this sentiment, that it be left to the discretion of the classroom teacher to decide how to handle late work in their class. Because, you know, if somebody's out sick for 2 or 3 days, that late policy or that turning work in component probably looks a little different. But far too many times this year we've been asked to give grace when a virtual student doesn't turn something in time or on time, and they're turning work in 2, 3, 4 weeks late. And being virtual is not necessarily a viable excuse for having done so. Participation in the virtual academy would prohibit students from participating in extracurriculars. Again, this is one of the things that when in talking to our staff, they advocated for strongly. As a coach of an extracurricular program, I would advocate for this personally as well, but I also understand there are a variety of opinions on that matter. But that has been overwhelmingly the opinion of our faculty here. Parents and guardians need to have the capacity to support our students that are enrolled with reliable internet access and an environment conducive to learning. That was from our assurances that we put out to our virtual learners this school year, and I would look to carry that same language moving forward. And then the last one, oh, I missed one, sorry, I apologize. The third one, and this is something I'm glad I didn't miss, but all testing and large summative assessments. So any sort of testing situation that needs to arise, we would ask that those students come and take that at a specific location in person. We have the ability to basically use one of the rooms here in this building as a quote-unquote testing center as necessary. Overwhelmingly, I've had teachers say that that's been their biggest concern from an educational standpoint is how do I give tests that I am sure of their integrity virtually? And that's a fair question. As a former classroom teacher, that's a question I would have had as well. So doing so in person and utilizing the precedent already set by the state in their decision to have all students test in person kind of lays the groundwork for us to make that decision moving forward. I apologize for skipping that. Oh, can you go back to that last one just real quick, Missy? Thank you. And then the last piece, excused absences should work with our virtual students the same way they work for our traditional students. You call the office, you tell them that your student is going to be out sick for that day, and they are an excused absence as opposed to an unexcused absence. Mr. Turflinger, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Participation, go back, please. Participation in virtual academy will prohibit students from participating in extracurricular activities. Is that if they miss assignments or you're eliminating them altogether?
The preference of everyone that I've talked to would be to eliminate that altogether, that if they were virtual, they are not participating in extracurriculars. Yes, sir.
Why?
Their feeling, at least in my conversations, has been is that if they wish to participate in extracurriculars, they are capable of being in the classroom.
Thank you.
Yep. Again, that is based on conversations with other people. That's, again, a compilation of feedback.
So that includes sports too, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that legally clear, Mark?
That was my understanding as well. Obviously, if that changes and our hands are tied, then so be it.
How does that jive with homeschooling? We allow homeschoolers to participate in sports.
There's IHSA guidelines on that, as there would be for virtual as well, and I don't know those off the top of my head. I do know like the homeschooling rule is the student has to be homeschooled for 3 consecutive years before they can even be a part of a high school athletic team. So let's say they've been homeschooled, all their careers, and then they become a freshman in high school. They would be eligible as long as they're taking at least one class in the school setting, but they've been homeschooled for 3 consecutive years prior, so that makes them eligible. If you just started homeschooling as an 8th grader and then you become a freshman and want to participate as a homeschooler, you would not be able to because you only homeschooled 1 year. So, I mean, there's guidelines with the IHSA that would dictate a lot of this as well. Because you're only talking, with this proposal, 9th through 12th graders being able to do it virtually.
I have one other question. It may not be the proper time, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
No problem.
If they're virtual, can they still attend Heartland like the homeschooled kids can for their CTE? If they're taking math, English, algebra, whatever, virtually, can they still get on the bus and go to Heartland in the morning or show up? I mean, we offer that to homeschool kids. They can show up.
Yeah, we categorized those students as hybrid students this year because they were in person at Heartland Career Center. I don't have a great answer for you, Mr. Turflinger. I would have to get back to you on how we would proceed with that one. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Oh, yep. Can you go back to there we go. No, I think I'm good. Yeah, sorry. All right, technology. So trying to make sure that our teachers are equipped to do this well has been an overarching theme for me. So one of the things that we want to provide for our teachers is an additional laptop to make sure, and they have those in their classrooms right now anyway, to where the Zoom is being run or orchestrated through one laptop, and they are still able to do whatever they need to do on their personal laptop. So that is not any sort of an additional device. That's just kind of already status quo for what we're doing. We did get a swivel camera to use for any lab-based classes or more mobile classes that require some sort of an activity or small group work. And the swivel camera is essentially a camera that sits on a little swiveling podium. I don't even know how you would explain it. And then the teacher wears a tracking device with a microphone in it, and the camera follows them around the classroom. So in some situations, particularly lab-based classes, that's been very beneficial. Microphones that amplify the sound over a Zoom meeting and not necessarily in the classroom. This is something that I hadn't even considered until teachers brought it to me, and we have actually started looking for and I think potentially found a device that is reasonably cost-effective that teachers can clip onto their lapel that would amplify the volume of whatever they're teaching only on the Zoom meeting, not in the classroom itself. So it should serve that purpose quite well. And then document cameras, particularly for art students and for for art teachers and any teacher needing to demonstrate something, those are available and have been available this year. And then again, we previously mentioned a reliable internet connection subject to our student accountability guidelines, and yeah, reliable internet is going to be necessary. So, when we talk about curriculum and course offerings, we want a virtual school day, or we want our virtual academy to, as closely as possible, resemble a school day that a student would get in person, both in content, curriculum, and expectations. I understand there are some things we can't replicate, but we want to make sure that is as similar as we can possibly make it. When talking with teachers, I asked them if they would prefer a synchronous learning model, one where students are zoomed into their classrooms in real time, or if they would prefer an asynchronous model, something that was a little bit more self-paced or something that was a little bit more of a module type system. Overwhelmingly, the feedback from teachers was that they would prefer a synchronous model. Overwhelmingly, that was the case. And just to make sure that we were all on the same page about what that preference would mean, I tried very hard to make sure they understood what I perceived as the pros and cons of both, and still they were very much in favor of a synchronous learning model where students are zoomed in real time or are participating in real time. So assignments, due dates, assessments would follow the traditional live in-person model as well, due to it being a synchronous model. So what do we intend to offer? And the hard part with this is that a lot of this depends on numbers as well, enrollment numbers, and how many students we have in each grade or in each class. Particularly with some of our CTE courses, it doesn't necessarily. It's not necessarily the same thing if we have 15 people sign up to take accounting virtually as opposed to one person taking accounting virtually. Is there other ways that we can fit that student schedule to accommodate their pathway or program of study and still not have 25 different teachers, 30 different teachers teaching virtually? But this would be the intended course offerings for a virtual academy, and it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 courses offered virtually next school year. I'm sure there are a million questions. I'll do the best I can to answer any and all of them.
I'll start, Alex. Good, well done on the presentation.
Thank you.
Can you, surrounding schools, other county schools, Kosciuszko County, are they doing similar things, or would this be a way for us to add some students from those areas?
So it's kind of a mixed bag in what you're getting. I know that MSD this school year offered a virtual option, but that virtual option was not with MSD faculty. What I had heard, unless this has changed in the last week, Sue, maybe you know, is that they do not intend to offer a virtual, correct? They do not intend to offer a virtual option next year. In talking to people over at Whitco, they did not intend, now again, if that's changed in the last week or so, okay, that I could be mistaken on that, but they did not intend to offer a virtual option next school year. Same would be true for Wabash City. The two biggest, or the biggest kind of options in our semi-surrounding area would be in Fort Wayne. Northwest Allen offers one, Southwest Allen offers one, and Fort Wayne Community is going to offer one starting next school year as well. And Huntington is going to offer a virtual program next year also. Warsaw is going to have some version of something virtually. I think it's an asynchronous Apex module-based system for their students. That was my understanding as well. So, yeah. Does that answer your question, Mr. Esposito?
I'd like to say it looks like a pretty nice presentation. It looks like a pretty great tool to have in our toolbox, especially if COVID ticks up again, but I do have several questions.
Yes, sir.
We had 40 kids in that this year. Do we have their test scores back as compared to the in-person kids yet?
Not that I'm aware of yet. No, sir.
They're still taking it.
I was going to say, I know we just got done with the spring testing window, so I don't believe we have those any test results back for those students yet, sir.
Okay. Does anybody have a total cost for this program?
I can't speak to the financial compensation part for teachers, obviously. On the technology, from the technology standpoint, there isn't a ton of additional costs that I can see. Tony, you and I have had conversations about this. We are in a pretty good spot technologically to make that happen.
Yeah, and actually, if we would choose to do this, because this is just the research that
Yes, sir.
went into
Yes,
this.
ma'am. Sorry.
No decisions have been made. We really don't know which way to go from here. Yeah, Alex is actually having conversations we actually had a conversation with MTA, who, then we talked about next steps, and he's meeting with all of the teachers that would be involved to get a pulse on whether they're even interested in doing it. We would have to provide some sort of a stipend, and then maybe a per student cost as well, because if one teacher has one student and the other one has 14, there needs to be some compensation there. We could possibly look at using CARES Act dollars to pilot it, to kind of get it off the ground, to see if it's gonna work or not work. We're still in those stages of even trying to figure out if that's even a possibility.
I have a couple other questions for this discussion. Last year, when COVID hit, we did the virtual and we did the hybrid, and then we were shut down. It was kind of forced on a lot of folks. When this was first discussed, it was talked about that teachers would teach virtual, that they wouldn't have to do both. And then 6 weeks later, we got notice, the board at that time got notice that because of this kid, what Dr. Rameau just talked about, we got 6 kids that want to take this class and 25 that wasn't an option, that we had to have teachers doing both. And I've heard a lot of discussion about this, and I'd like you to go back in your information gathering and find out what they think about the dual computers on the desk and the camera versus having something bigger on the wall so the kids at home can see what's going on in the class, and the kids in the class can see them. Because the biggest thing I found in my research is this social, emotional, that you're not getting when you're in class. You're pretty much isolated, and when you can't see what's going on in class, and you're not able to interact because the teacher's walking around looking at the camera, working on a Promethean board, and this computer sitting here with just say 15 kids on it, and they're this big. And like I said, I've done a lot of research. I have a lot of relatives that are teachers, and there's a reason that there's a lot of school districts abandoning this. I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but I'd like to see these questions answered. If we got all this CARES Act dollars and there's a COVID uptick and we have to do this, maybe we have to have teachers that just teach virtual. And I get the whole licensing thing, that you can't hire, you're not gonna find somebody that's licensed to do 5 subjects. So, I don't know, just questions.
I can speak to part of that, Mr. Turflinger. I can't speak to all of it. So we actually, the guidance department and I looked into, okay, what kind of schedule flexibility do we have to, at the very least, give teachers that would need to teach virtually, or give some teachers, give them the opportunity, or give them the plan time and the prep time that they need to be able to do that. And given the number of courses we offer, which if it's similar next year to this year, which it's fairly close, is just under 100 different courses in the fall and just over 100 different courses in the spring. We could not find the opportunity or the spots in the schedule to make that work without blowing class sizes up to 30, 35 students in class. So that's the only component of that I can speak to, but we did look into that. Yes, sir.
Again, thanks for the presentation, very interesting, and like Mr. Turfemeyer said, I think it is a nice tool to have, not just for COVID, but for other situations that students might be in. I've got a concern, I guess. I mean, you're talking 40 students in this, that potentially would be in this type of program, but correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying you would need a doctor's note to be eligible?
No, I'm saying if you don't meet the other criteria, so if I apologize if I wasn't clear on that. So if your track record would indicate that virtual was a very, very tough fit for you, then we would need a doctor's note to kind of make that happen.
Okay, yeah, that clears that up.
I apologize, sir.
Yeah, so it would be, if you don't meet some of those other things,
yes,
the
sir.
doctor's note would make you eligible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then so I mean, my concern is that, let's assume COVID is on the downward trend for next school year. I assume a lot of these 40 were for that reason.
I assume so. I've been putting together a survey. It should be going out either tomorrow or Thursday to our current virtual students to gauge interest in virtual moving into next school year.
Right.
So I don't know, but that is in the works, sir.
So I mean that's good that we'll have that information. But if that was a high percentage, and then you throw in there no extracurricular and some of these other things, I just feel like that 40 could turn into 10, and then does it make sense at all to do if we put too many restrictions on getting into this program or qualifying for the program? I mean, 40 is already a low number as far as I'm concerned.
The numbers component of that is going to be very interesting, and just to elaborate a little bit on the extracurricular component, that is again just a compilation of feedback from as many different people as I could talk to. So I get it. It does limit our pool quite significantly.
Yeah.
I have one other question. When this was talked about last year, it was brought up about training. The people that we have teaching haven't been trained in virtual teaching or hybrid teaching. Have we made any progress? And maybe you're not the one to ask this question, but has there been any progress? You know, is there a plan this summer if we're going to do this to get those people that training? You know, gentleman sitting right here that does it pretty much every day. So, I mean, there's a resource you can reach out to too, but I know that was a big concern when we talked about this last year.
I can speak to a portion of that question. I can't speak to all of it because I don't know if it would be me to schedule that or what, but what I can say is that in conversations with other districts and in talking and just interacting with our teachers on a regular basis, we have started to figure out what we would term best practices virtually, and it would certainly be our intention to make those a little bit more widely known and shared for all teachers virtually moving into next school year, because we do have some teachers, particularly in high school, whom this would affect most, that have done a really nice job with this. And yeah, we have a lot to learn from those people that have done this very, very well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Mrs. Janegi, we're in the process with the digital learning grant too, where they're getting the micro-credentials, correct?
We have 11 teachers becoming digital learning ambassadors through a grant, and then opportunities for everyone else to benefit from that coming up. So we have pushed out a few things for teachers that wanted the training. We haven't forced training, but we have had things available to our staff. If they wanted it, it was there.
Alex, what's your title?
Remote Learning Coordinator.
Yeah. So I just got a question on this. It's sort of an investment, right? The way we're looking at it versus a kind of necessary evil. So are we, is the thought to vote on this tonight, or I would rather see, okay.
No, not at all. We just want you to know where we're at, what he's done,
But nice job.
the conversations with the teachers, and just to throw out some information here, I went back and tracked how many transfers we had to virtual schools over the last 4 years. 2017 to 18 was 10 students, 18-19 is 16, 19-20 it was 14, this last year was 27, on top of what we already have remote. That's the current concern. You know, none of us like it, that we might have to start going this way, but we have to at least give it a consideration, and that's what we're doing. We're doing the research and giving it a consideration to see if it's even feasible. So.
Good conversation.
Yeah, a lot of complicated movement in this space too, right?
Yes, there are.
I have
actually
a
is.
question. Thank you for the presentation. How many teachers have you talked to get these answers?
So I had a committee of 12 teachers to kind of base this proposal, or to put a proposal together based on those conversations. So I had shared kind of an outline for the whole thing with the entire high school staff in one of their staff meetings, formed the committee based on those conversations, and that was volunteers. If you volunteered to be a part of the committee, you were on it. And then once we had a proposal, and once I had presented that to the CIA team and MTA discussion team, I've been meeting with the staff in their department meetings starting Monday, because MTA just happened Friday and CIA was on Thursday. So it's kind of been in different numbers, but in various groups over the course of the last week, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks or so, sir.
Okay. So all the teachers that have taught virtually so far this year have not gotten together and met with you together as a whole?
As a whole group, yes, they did. When I laid this out to them originally, it was to the entire high school staff, which does encompass everybody that's taught virtually. And then if they had any feedback or wanted to be a part of the committee, and even for some of those didn't want to be a part of the committee, but did have feedback, I said, please email me. If you want me to come into your classroom, if you want to meet during your prep time, whatever it is, I was more than available. And I had several teachers beyond those that were on the committee that did ask for those conversations, and I was more than happy to accommodate.
Has there been any negative feedback on this as far as discouraging it?
There's been some negative feedback. I think largely the conversations that turn negative is when the conversation is of a couple of varieties. A, when it's about compensation, which it's not really my place to have that discussion with teachers or with administrators or anybody. And B, accountability was a big concern over and over again for teachers, and how do you continually hold students accountable during or in a virtual setting. So when there are concerns, sir, it's typically in one of those two camps.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have one other question. You said you're going to send out a survey
Yes.
to these 40 parents?
Yes, sir.
Is that going to go to their individual email, or is that going to be on Parent Square?
The intention was to send it to them via Parent Square, yeah.
Okay. Could you share with the board some of the questions that you're going to ask? I mean, are you asking for what they thought of it, what kind of improvements that we can make, what they don't like about it? Yep. I mean, are those included?
So it's not finished yet, because I'm still checking to make sure that the questions make sense to get the information that we want. But what I've intended to ask was, you participated as a virtual student this school year. Given what we are proposing as potential guidelines, would you be interested in being a virtual student next school year? If the answer is yes, fantastic. If the answer is no, why not?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for all your work on this, too.
Yes. Yep.
Lord, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just got to say this, Dr. Grimeau, MCS logo.
Okay. All right. Just Mr. Markin's bringing some of these around. I'll try to be quick because I know we're running late this evening. We put the committee together to really talk about marketing, and what kept coming up is our logo over and over and over again. So lots and lots of conversations, lots of different models that Dave Z did. Brought us right back to this one, which most of you have seen, because he used it in, I believe, the newsletter that went out a few years ago, and randomly. So we just kept coming back to this one. Everyone seemed to like it. We had a lot of feedback from staff, from administrators, from students. We spoke with every board member to kind of get their feedback. But we put together an official branding guide, and it's kind of floating around over there if you want to take a look. But it does have what is a brand identity and what that means to us, and why are these guidelines necessary. So when we put all this together, we wanted to make sure that there was fidelity within our brand, so that when it goes out there, you're always going to see the exact same thing. You're always going to see the exact same colors. You're also going to make sure that our letterheads are consistent, that our school mascot is consistent, so that we make sure that there's different formats that you can use that are already approved. So we're going to send this out so everybody knows this is us when they see our M. If you can look, it's right there also on our podium already. Randy's been hard at work trying to get it out on a few other announcements. We wanted to make sure we shared that with the board before we started using that. But if you can see as that gets passed around, there are lots of different ways you can do that. And as far as the M on any kind of athletic wear or anything like that, what was determined was if you are representing our school somehow, we want that M attached to something. So if you're just buying random shirts for first grade that says, hey, we're all about first grade, then that's fine. We're not expecting that. But if you're representing us and you take a bus somewhere and you're representing our school corporation, we would like to see that M on there. So we have been putting this on social media already. I know Randy has put it out there on Parent Square, so there are some documents there. We also are making up not only are the mascot and those restrictions, but what we will be doing with our postcards. And good, thank you for scrolling down through there. So essentially, we want to make sure it's used with fidelity. So hopefully you all like it. We have had a lot of feedback. We are okay with the Squire Strong. We want to keep that. It's been really powerful for us, so we want to make sure that we keep that as well. So any questions from anybody about our branding? Lots and lots of work went into that, so we're really, really proud of that. Now we can start really moving forward with a lot of our marketing pieces that we've talked about, so thank you.
I believe we're at 7.8, optional masks, 2021, 21-22 school year.
And that was not brought by me, and it was board members,
So I asked to have that put on. I would just like to open discussion to see how the board feels about bringing that forward for discussion, and I think that we should explore the opportunity to make it an optional with the provision that if things are necessary, we go back to the way we are now. I just want to start exploring that option.
Well, one of the things are you talking about for right now?
No, clarify, for the coming school year.
Oh, okay. That does make a difference. have to tell you, when we submit CARES Act 3, within 30 days, we have to submit a reentry plan. I've already started working on that, and so yes, that mask piece is in there. I don't know, Emma, you want to talk a little bit about that, but we don't even know where the CDC is going. We know that this is going to have to be a fluid document, just like we did last year. We didn't know what was going to happen day to day. But
I can tell you we have no clue. COVID is fluid, very much know that. I'm with webinars every Friday with the Department of Health, and they keep telling us, we're going to try and get a rough draft of a guideline for next school year, but they're not able to produce that because we really don't know where we're going to be. They're going to try and come up with somewhat of a rough draft. Hopefully, I don't know where masks are going to be. If our numbers are way down and we're doing really well, we've got COVID well under control, I can see masks not being mandated. But I can't make that promise. Does that help? It's just, it is what it is. There's nothing.
So basically, you're just saying we'll just wait and see where we are when we get closer.
Yeah, we just have to wait and see what the guidelines are, where we're at, in the community with what COVID, what it's doing. We don't have a glass to tell us how that's going to work.
I think respectfully to the conversation and what I would ask to table this until our July meeting and maybe have some other discussion or more information by then.
We probably will have a lot more information by July, definitely, 1st of August, but I know by then we'll have somewhat of a guideline. We'll know what our numbers are. We do know things are going to look good as far as COVID cases because it's summer and everybody's going to be outside and social distancing. That always, the outside always helps us keep it at bay, so.
I think if I can...
I just want to be clear. I'm not asking for any action tonight.
No.
I want to get the discussion started and get it on the radar because I don't want it to be August and we are still status quo and never had this discussion.
Absolutely.
Well, pretty much in my world, I'm pretty much going to go with what my guidelines are from the Department of Health and the CDC. And because that's where our science is. And go from one of those guidelines and propose those.
Yeah, the thing is, we didn't create the mask mandate, so.
Right, no. We didn't.
So it doesn't require any action. Thanks for coming, MA. And since we're running late, we'll just wait till July and have a conversation. Yeah, okay. Okay, 7.9 hiring policy. I see there's a typo there because this is not a first reading. It's nowhere near ready to be a first reading. I asked to have it put on the agenda after a conversation with several board members. Dr. Grimeau found some documents. Policy committee met, had one guideline or a starting point, and then there was a couple more documents found. So I guess I'm just going to throw this out there and see what the board thinks about it. And it's completely in left field compared to the way things are normally done. But one of the documents goes all the way back to April of 2018. And there was discussions at that time with Mr. Pettibone. I guess what I'd like to see is a couple members of the MTA and our policy committee and Dr. Grimeau and whoever else she sees fit sit down at one table and see if we can get this thing hammered out. The previous board asked for this hiring policy a year ago. And we got pieces and parts here that, it's not ready to be a first reading, and I'd just like to, let's just try something new. Let's put all the people around the table, since we already got a starting point, and see if we can't get this thing hammered out and get it put in place. So it's a discussion item, and I just said my piece, so.
Well, what I would like to say is the one document that says transfers within Manchester Community Schools, that was with MTA. And the difficulty is, are you wanting, because I've got to have some guidance from you, are you wanting a separate one for teachers? Because it may look different versus what we have agreed upon through MTA, and we were actually going to continue the discussion. It was just discovered after we last met on our policy committee meeting that, and I haven't even had time to see if it even conflicts with the other one. Do you have the other document? When it says MCS hiring procedures? There you go. So we haven't even had time to really even compare to see if there's a way that the teacher one would work with that hand in hand and make sure that we're not conflicting with anything that has been agreed upon with MTA. That's my concern. I just want to make sure that we're on the
So
same
how about we
page.
do this? You work with the MTA on that. Jay, we get board input, right?
Right.
Why can't we do that at why can't we do that at one table? You know, I've sat here for 2.5 years, and it goes over here, and it goes back and forth, and 6, 7, 8 months goes by. All I'm asking is just one time, why can't everybody just sit down at the table like adults and have a conversation? If you need to bring the lawyer, bring the lawyer. That way, the policy committee understands the MTA's point, the MTA understands the board's point, and nobody's deciding anything. All you're gonna do is make a recommendation. I just don't understand why y'all can't sit down at the table and have a conversation. That's the way industry works. You know, the engineers and the draftsmen and the business development people all sit down and have a conversation. I don't understand why everything's gotta be a major production, but.
Let me make a comment in terms of why we're talking about it going back through MTA. This would be a mandatory topic of discussion under law. So we could sit down and meet at a table in a smaller group, but it's still gonna have to come back through our MTA discussion team in order to fulfill that requirement as a mandatory topic of discussion, so.
And to be clear, I'm just trying to streamline the process and get something here that they can talk about, and then you go do your piece, and the board can do their piece, Mr. France can do their piece, because I see this thing taking 6, 7, 8 months, and we've already waited a year, and we still don't have anything.
Well, and I will say on this, in our defense, this came up at our last discussion meeting, and we have not actually met other than to meet with Alex regarding the virtual program specifically as a group to sit back down and go through it. And we didn't know about the second piece until like we came to the meeting and they were like, oh wait, there are actually 2 policies and we need to figure out how to join those 2 together. So not that there can't be a separate meeting like you're suggesting, but we've met once and we had an entire agenda and it kind of was one of the items on the agenda. So we haven't taken the time and had the opportunity to get back together as a group, as our whole discussion team with the admin to look at it. So just so that you know that, so you know where we are. Not that we're trying to stall and waste time and you know, take up people's time. We just haven't had the opportunity to go back and do it yet. So.
Not a problem.
Thanks.
Let's just thank God we found them, huh?
Exactly.
That's the way I'm looking at it. But we do, I mean, this is something that we
Well,
do
this
need to
is
get
what
done.
Jeremy and I, well, Jeremy actually started writing, this is what we wrote down that we do. And then the other one we found. So that's what we're saying is,
You gave
and we
this to me
shared
at the
this
policy
one,
committee, right?
we shared this one with you at the policy. Because there was a request prior to that to write that down, so that's what we did.
You have it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
There's not a motion, right?
No, it's just discussion item.
Okay.
Not a first read either.
Okay. Heartland update. Mr. Self, if you would. We have a signing, and you know what? I forgot to print the names. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. These are two Heartland students. Anybody recognize one of those kids is a Manchester kid.
Justice Metzger.
There you go. He was a student at Heartland, and he is signing his. In fact, I do have it. Hang on.
You got it. Here's the text if you need it.
Thank you.
Here's what you sent to me, so.
Right. Thank you. These are precision machining students. Arthur Weishman from Wabash and Justice Metzger from Manchester signed letters of intent with their internship employer. That's Brian Evans in the background there. He's the internship coordinator at Heartland, and he had these kids out working as an internship at Zimmer Biomet. And the cool part about this is they've already worked there. He's going to get a pay raise. As soon as he gets his 90 days in, he's going to become eligible for up to $10,000 a year in precision machining college credit at Ivy Tech, who's a partner with Zimmer Biomet. And then we also have Guy Steffen from Heartland. He's a senior in the welding technology, and he signs a letter of intent with his intern employer. Again, that was through Brian Evans at Heartland, and he's accompanied by his parents, Mike and Susie, and he's gonna be working for Innovative Metal Works, and the owner there is Justin Coburn. And then I got one other success story I want to talk about. At our board meeting last month at Heartland, this is our 50th year down there, and this is the first time it's ever happened. There's a North Miami student who is a pretty focused student, took a couple of online classes during COVID, and when we have our graduation at Heartland on Thursday night, he's going to get his certificate, and Friday night he's going to graduate from high school, and Saturday he's going to walk at commencement at Vincennes University with an associate's degree. That's pretty big, because it was all free. The only thing his folks paid for was his supplies at Heartland and his online classes. And that's the biggest success story I can share about Heartland right there. I mean, they were an integral part of him being able to pull that off. And hopefully with COVID on the uptick, we're going to be able to present the certificates at Honeywell this year instead of having to mail them to kids. So that's all I got with the Heartland update. Michael?
Keep it short and sweet. Aggressive legislative session, all the way from the executive director of the ISBA said it's one of the most aggressive sessions he's ever been involved in as far as the legislation. But if you look at what happens, I mean, there's an increase in doctor program, but at the same time, we've got budget increases, right? We've got CARES Act money flowing in. You know, I think the game in here is going to be, I think one of the things I picked up is they say, okay, there's been a lot of talk about teacher pay, right? Red for ed and the stuff, and I think this year the legislation's figured out, you know what? We're going to shift funds around and we're going to lay this back on the board. And that's exactly where it sits right now. And so again, we got to be, you know, I think we've got to be very smart with what we do with this money, you know, coming at us, because I think that's an expectation. And the fact that we're, you know, minimum salaries and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it only gets a little more dicey, you know, in the future. But I think, but by and large, you got to feel like, you know, from where we were a year ago, no budget cuts, CARES Act money, you know, you got to kind of feel good about where things, you know, yeah, we got increased competition for doctors. Get used to it would be the way we need to look at it. But I think that, you know, if we can actually address teacher pay in the state of Indiana, once again, we can kind of be leaders on this, you know, a national sort of issue. That's all I've got.
Hearing the patrons.
Good evening. My name is Nick Cockey. I love Manchester Community Schools. My wife and I both graduated here, and we currently have 2 children attending. So to say that we want this school to thrive is an understatement. I'd like to voice my opinion, my children's opinion, and some of my peers' opinion on masks in school. I think we all know children are not considered a population vulnerable to COVID-19 illness, but masks are still required. Vaccines are available for teachers as of yesterday, kids older than 12, but masks are still required. The data on absentee and transmission rates in our schools has been good, but masks are still required. I'm sure precious learning time has been lost due to teachers and staff making sure everyone has a mask on at appropriate times. I can't imagine how hard it is to be a teacher and try to constantly hold everyone's attention. It's already hard enough to keep kids' attention. I don't feel this should be a burden on our teachers. We already ask a lot from them. So I strongly encourage you tonight to do whatever you can to get these masks off my kids as soon as possible, and at least make them optional for the coming school years. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Anybody else? Superintendent comments?
I have one. I just want to thank our donors that we have over $5,000 again this month in donations, and can't thank our supporters enough for this year. This whole past year, I feel like they have really went above and beyond and tried to be extra supportive. So thank you to all of them, and we appreciate the support.
Board comments?
The next point, like if we get in it next year and it comes push to shove, whose decision is that legally? Is it ours? Do we need to follow the health board's recommendation from the county? I've never really understood that clearly, to be honest.
Right now, it's part of the executive order that we have to follow, so I don't think I've seen anything from the health department or the state health department saying you have to mandate from them, so I have to tell you at the time what's in place and what's not.
I might be able to help you with that. I had conversations today with people from the IDOH and the CDC who still support mask wearing in the schools. And they do that because no one under 16 at this point are eligible for vaccines. Yes, that's going to be coming about, but also you need to understand younger students are being attacked by these new variants that are out, and it is becoming, I think it's the B1117 variant specifically is the one that's getting our younger kids sick. So that's kind of why the school, or it's just because we can't get everybody vaccinated because they're not eligible, the mask. Now, once we get the vaccine out and lots of people get it, that will create that herd immunity, and then we won't need them, is the goal.
Thank you, Emma. Any other school board comments? I would like to congratulate our 2 retirees and wish them all the luck and good health in the future. To the STEM team, congratulations. To Alex and Sue and Randy, it seems like your names come up an awful lot about above and beyond, and I'd just like to personally thank you.
I'd like to congratulate the teachers and staff of Manchester Community Schools and the students and the parents for making it through this very interesting, amazing year. So We have 2.5 weeks left. Am I right with that? Yes. So, yeah, don't jinx it.
13 days, but nobody's counting.
So congratulations on the end of the year, and I so look forward to starting next year after a long summer break. So, thank you.
With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn unless somebody else got something they want to say.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? We're adjourned. Thanks for coming.
Rick, you want to sign?